7:01 on December 15th for the town of Pitkin regular meeting. Let's start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I trust everybody's having a good month so far and everybody's getting ready for Christmas and all the holidays. So we're going to try to move through our agenda tonight. Just for the record, at the table up front here for Board of Trustees, we've got Jerry Garrettson, Tom Gibb, Corey Nasso, and myself are all present. We have one lone member in the audience, and it looks like we've got about 8.
I think
10 on Zoom. I can't.
12.
12 on Zoom. And of course, we have our Pitkin town clerk is present as well. So we're going to jump right to it. Get a move on things. So first item of business is to approve the meeting minutes of November 17th, regular meeting, November 19th, special meeting for OWTS ordinance, the December 11th, special meetings for approval of the 2026 budget, the 2026 budget amendment, and the mill levy. So let's start with the November 17th minutes first. Regular meeting, the regular meeting of November 17th. We now have 2 people in the in attendance in the audience. So November 17th regular meeting, you see any changes on minutes? I see one, I think, on the second page. Under the top of discuss with possible action appointing Josh Ackerman to the position of environmental health agent. Under public comment over Zoom by Pete, I think that's Pulse.
I do too. That was the only thing I saw.
I don't know if Pete Humphreys.
Thank you. Not
That's
sure what
all I
I was
have.
doing there.
Anything else on November 17th meeting? All right, then let's look at the November 19th special meeting on OWTS. Anybody have any changes on that one? All right, then I'll move to the December 11th special meeting. Adoption of the budget, amended budget, and the mill levy, general property taxes. You may see changes on those minutes.
Nothing for me.
And I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the minor change regarding the name.
Do I have a second?
This is Chair, I'll second.
All right, I have a motion, Corey, a second by Jara, excuse me, to approve the minutes, November 17th, November 19th, December 11th, with the amendment of the name on November 17th. Meeting, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Got it. We'll let it right along to the treasurer report and disbursements. Anybody have any comments on any of the treasurer report?
I guess on bill payment list or disbursements for the month. Like QuickBooks Online, what is that for 1987-26?
So that is, excuse me. So that is our yearly subscription. Then we pay a monthly fee of $9, but that's the yearly. Excuse me.
And then same thing, same thing, the Ben's 12, 8. 25, 30, 26.
At. Oh,
Is that culverts?
Mhm.
Okay, okay. No, that's fine. I was just, didn't recognize the name, so.
Okay.
and the payment to Jesse. Or Streets. That
Yes,
$500 that didn't get put on last,
Correct, yeah.
is that right?
Oh,
Yep, you're at the top of my list. I just didn't get to you on this go round. I've been under the weather, so I didn't get the whole list done. I'm so sorry.
Any other questions on treasurer reports for the disbursement list? I do have one question, and I guess it's more for Stacy, and that's on our town attorney's bill.
Yes.
Did that get resolved on the invoice versus what's on there?
Well, it was resolved. I have actually not spoken with our wonderful town attorney about this yet. I just went back over our contract with her, and it's a monthly base rate of $11.50. So I just changed it on my end, and I figured I would address it with her when I sent it.
All right, any other comments, questions? If not, then I will entertain a motion for the disbursements for the month of December.
This is Jara, and I move that we approve the December 2025 disbursements.
Yeah.
As presented.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Do we have a motion and a second to approve the December 2025 disbursements? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right. That takes us to item number 3 on our agenda. So, and I did not look to see, is Chris Stryker online and on Zoom?
I see a name that says Chris. Looks
There
like
is a
he's probably-
Chris.
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay, very good. So I'll lead into this if I may, Chris. So item number 3 is discussed with possible action, the Gunnison Met-Rec / Western Slope Towers marketing of the tower services located on the town property. So I received a call last week from Chris Stryker from Western Slope Towers. And I'm going to let him explain it all, but just in real brief, Western Slope Towers acquired all of the towers that Gunnison Met-Rec had in the county. And now they are looking at marketing those towers to anybody that might want to put equipment on them, even the one located here on town property. So he has an ask for the tower on the town property, I believe, of the board for tonight. And then we'll possibly look at a lease agreement as well. But I'll let Chris kind of explain what's taking place with Met-Rec and his company and what he's asking for.
Yeah, good evening, all. Thank you for allowing me to jump on here on short notice and present kind of where we are with the status of the existing Gunnison Met-Rec sites that were acquired back in end of October, 1st of November. Is my camera right there? A little adjusting here. What's that?
We saw your forehead before, but we see your eyes now.
Okay, that's a little better. Yeah, and as I mentioned, or as I discussed with Ed last week, the sites that we acquired are lacking some due diligence that we have begun the process on, including FAA, regulatory, NEPA, and ASR, which is the antenna structure registrations. So we've kind of started our due diligence on all of these sites in order to get them into a position where we can potentially approach some wireless internet some cell phone wireless carriers, or Gunnison County Electric, the entities that may have interest in co-locating on the existing infrastructure. Right now, we've finished our desktop NEPA review. We've also completed the FAA. We're in the process of filing the antenna structure registration with the FCC. And then we'll be in a position where we can actually market these to those different entities. So what I've asked is to allow us roughly 18 months to complete all of our due diligence and put these out to several interested parties and determine what that interest level is. I did send over a standard lease template that kind of outlines what we're looking for. Roughly 2,500 square feet, so a 50 by 50. I don't know exactly what Gunnison MetRec had there initially. No one has been able to locate that lease that they had with the town previously. So we're kind of starting over from scratch here to put all of our due diligence together. And this is one of the first pieces we need to, instead of doing an assignment from an original lease, but to just set up a new lease between the town and Western Slope Towers. So I've emailed that off. Again, it kind of just goes through what our intent is, and that is to complete all the due diligence and then market the site. And in the event that we don't have an interested party, we would decommission that site and take it down and then restore the premises back to as best original condition with some normal wear and tear. So that's our intent right now.
So Chris, I received your lease late this afternoon. I did not forward it out to the other board members as of yet because we were so close to the meeting. But are you asking that we do the lease? Let me back up. Are you asking for 18 months for you to research and do your due diligence? Or are you wanting that lease agreement as soon as possible as well, so you can do that due diligence in that 18 months?
So the lease essentially is for the option to allow us to do our due diligence. So ideally, yes, we would like to pursue the lease that allows us to perform the due diligence. And then based on what interest we have, if we exercise that option and do a longer term lease, that is also noted in the lease draft itself. So initially, we're just looking for basically an option. So we would pay $1,000 for an option period to allow us to move forward, get our due diligence completed, and then market the site and have a determination at that point, upon that completion of 18 months, the direction we move with the site from there.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm not asking for it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was just saying, I'm not asking for that to be reviewed at all tonight. I just wanted to give you something as a template to start with that you guys can review, and maybe the next board meeting, if you've had a chance to look that over, we can discuss further.
Okay. Are there any questions from our board members for Chris?
Not really. I mean, sounds like potentially a positive thing, so glad somebody's kind of running with it.
Well, hopefully we can get a tenant that would be, interested in serving the area, and a win-win to utilize the existing infrastructure.
I'll throw this out there just for the public, I guess, too. When Chris and I talked, he's talking or looking at Wi-Fi services that might want to hang on the tower. We talked about possibly other cell carriers that might want to hang on the tower. I threw up the question of over-the-air TV providers, if there are any out there. I don't know of any. He did state, and I don't want to speak for Chris, but he did say that he would try to look into see if there are any providers that would even make that possible. I don't know if it's possible with the way the over-the-air works, but I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently about it. So I think that's just some possibilities that could happen with the tower. As we, maybe there's a company out there that wants to hang something on that's gonna benefit the town and its citizens. I guess that's what I'm looking for. And what I would propose, if there's, well, let me back up. I'll open it up in any public comments if anybody in the public on Zoom has anything to say about it. Or in-house. Go ahead, Justin.
Just for clarification, you're talking about the tower that's up towards John Passmore's, on kind of the west corner of town?
Yes, that's a good clarification. Thank you for bringing that up, Jesse. That is the tower that is, see, how do I define this? It's right on the northern edge of town on Highway 76, just on, I'd say, the north side of Highway 76 up above the town that Matt Rack had the over-the-air antennas on. And that's good clarification. That has nothing to do with the cell tower on the other side of town. Anybody, I don't see anybody else on Zoom raising their hand. So what I guess what I'd like to see us do tonight, and I'm open this up for discussion of the board. If the board would like to agree to allow Western Slope Towers to go ahead and proceed with their paperwork that they're doing and due diligence, giving them some time even in the next month to work on it. I would like to send, I haven't even looked at the lease agreement, but I'd like to send it out to the board members. And I'd like to send it to our town attorney to review it so that we could possibly review it in the January meeting to do a lease agreement if that works for everyone.
This is Tom. I think that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, exactly what I was gonna say.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so to make it official, I will make a motion that we allow Western Slope Towers to do their due diligence in looking at the paperwork and start the marketing it. We will review the lease agreement and then have in our January meeting where we can discuss the lease agreement and move forward on it. So that's my motion. Hopefully Stacy got it.
Yeah. This is Tom, and I'm in favor of that motion. I will second.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second from Tom to let Western Slope Towers proceed with the due diligence. Putting up the paperwork, we'll review the lease agreement with the town attorney and our board on the January meeting. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I guess I should have asked you that before we vote on it. Is that okay with you?
That's acceptable. Absolutely.
All right, very good. So thank you, Chris, for bringing it forward to us. We were under the impression that the tower and everything was just going to get cleaned off. And we'd have land up there that we'd have to mow or the deer would have to mow it. That's all we need left with. So you've given us some hope now for that time. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
All right, so let's move on to item number 4. And that is to discuss with possible action the penalties for violations and any additions or deletions to the following codes. The 2018 International Residential Building Code, 2025 Wildfire Resiliency Code, the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code, and the 2023 Colorado Energy Code. I would say, I guess we'll just start with discussion. I'm not sure how to try to attack this. Maybe I'll go to our town attorney first to see if she has any input on penalties for violation for any one of these 4 codes that we have to implement next year.
Sure. So I would say oh, sorry, there's a weird echo. It's going to distract me. Maybe it's better. The ordinance adopting each code has to specify penalties. But it can simply specify the maximum possible penalty, and then you can kind of defer the decision of which penalties apply in which cases to later. And if you wanted to go that route, I looked through some prior ordinances, and it doesn't look like you've ever gone higher than like $300 a day for violations. It could potentially be as high as $2,650 a day. That's the municipal jurisdictional limit. But without a municipal court, it becomes tricky to impose that. And that actually raises a question. I saw a few, at least two ordinances declaring an intent to start a municipal court in combination with Gunnison. Has that ever happened?
It has not.
Okay. So that would be an enforcement mechanism. Short of that, I think you're left with what we're proposing for the zoning code, which is that it be essentially an order by somebody in town that, and similar to the OWTS too, an order by some official in town saying you are here for in violation and you shall pay X dollars. And if you don't pay, then the town can collect it as a lien against the property. That mechanism, so either municipal court or a lien, either way, but I think up to you, the ordinance itself has to specify the maximum penalty.
Okay, I do have, I guess, one question and comment, and that is, in our previous zoning code, I know you just said it was $300 per day. I was always under the understanding that it was a max or a $300 per offense, but it wasn't per day. Where OWTS ordinance is $50 per day. Is that, am I correct in that thinking, or am I wrong?
I can double check, but my recollection is that the current zoning code specifies that each day of a continuing violation is a new violation, which would make it a daily fine, potentially.
It's 300 per offense, but each day constitutes a new offense. So
Yeah.
essentially still a 300, it's just worded differently.
Okay, so maybe it's just my poor reading and interpretation, but we need to make sure that's clarified in whatever we say.
So this is Tom, and I was kind of going along with Ed here as far as my reading, so I didn't catch that was any infraction that remains would be a $300 a day offense. And that's probably just how my brain works, because it takes a while to get to an offense, and it probably takes a while to undo it. So I was a little more maybe time frame oriented on how this would work, but oh well, we can discuss it.
So and this is, I'm asking the board, I guess, and maybe our attorney, do we want to have the same penalty for each of the codes to make things consistent, or do we want different penalties for each of the codes?
Yeah, so this is Tom, and having not yet adopted these, though we're going to have to, and not having delved into them to see how an infraction might take longer to arrive at and longer to get out of. And we are weather oriented up here through about 5 months a year. I don't want to put off setting numbers, but I don't really know what those numbers should be, and I would hate to do a disservice to people who get in trouble with something here, because this wildfire resiliency code, we haven't. So for example, when people will see this different and they read it, So when they cleared up in the properties for fire mitigation, so I talked to the guys, and one of their things was rid of all of the pine tree kind of trees, and a lot of the aspen, but not all of them. The aspen don't burn, and I don't know how they appear in this code, because I've not delved through it. I did a superficial reading, that's all. So I'm not really prepared to put numbers on this. You guys can jump in if you know.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Drew, go ahead.
So, when you say across the board fines, we're just, right now, we're just talking about these under this bullet point. You're not talking about the zoning code. Oh,
That is correct. The
Okay.
zoning code is separate. I mean, it's a separate code. Now, we do need to adopt that in the coming months.
You know, for simplicity's sake, having whatever number we decide on across the board would make it more feasible in people's minds, or be wondering, we wouldn't have to sift through them. But maybe there are different impacts on those violations make. You know, that maybe they're not all like $300 a day violations. I don't know.
So, I'll give you my thoughts. Don't know if they're right, wrong, or different. But we set the OWTS violations at $50 per day. Because of my understanding of thinking of an offense on the zoning code, or it could be in the other ones, was a flat $300. I thought it was a flat 300 until it was correct. It wasn't per day. So I'm more inclined, if it is per day, I'd be more inclined to keep $50 per day as more of the fine for the offense, knowing that by the state statute, there is a maximum that we can fine. 2,650 is what Hillary just told us. But $50 a day to me for an OWTS seems like that's one of the most important ordinances we have. And if we do $50 per day on that, I'm not sure why I'd suggest $300 a day for wildfire resilience.
Well, this is Tom, and I will second that opinion. Thank you very much.
That's just my 2 cents. It's probably nothing worth mentioning.
I could be in agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I like the being consistent across the board, considering that these are all in some shape or form regarding building and structure changes and everything in the town of Pitkin. Yeah, I'd be inclined to just keep it somewhat consistent. I think it makes it easier for anybody that's reading through it. So my thoughts too.
Okay. I'll open up the public comments if there's no other board comments right now. Maybe there's someone on Zoom that wants to have some input. Anybody on Zoom? Oh, I see a hand.
Oh, we do have a hand. Yeah, we have Pete. Go ahead, Pete.
Okay.
Yes, this is Pete Olson. I would be interested to know when these fines are implemented. Apparently, the town has a couple of options to do that. One would be through municipal court, which does not exist. The other would be to provide notice to a property owner of the amount due, and failure to pay would result in a lien on the property. What recourse is there for a property owner absent a municipal court? So I guess that's my question. How does somebody address the potential fine?
So I'm going to ask our town attorney if she could weigh in on that.
Yeah, so before a fine would become due and payable, there would be an appeal process that would, if the property owner wanted to appeal they could do so. And after that appeal was exhausted, then it would be final. So not before.
To whom would they appeal?
But we have to specify. For instance, in the zoning code, it has a appeal process. Depending on the type of violation, it either goes to from the zoning board of adjustment to the board of trustees, or sometimes the zoning board of adjustment decision is final and their appeal is to district court.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Hillary froze or if she was done.
No, I was done.
She's done.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Tom, and let me just throw up something that I think was discussed at one of our previous meetings. And that was, a violation, there's a process, an allegation, investigation, mitigation, and if all that fails, then we go to fines. Is that kind of how that works?
Correct.
So this is not just when you got a fine. You will be notified, you will be given a chance, you will be investigated to see if the degree and so there's a process. This is not just something going to jump up and grab you.
And that I believe you're absolutely correct, Tom. And what I would recommend is we set that process on the zoning code, and we'll look at that, or we can look at it again. But the zoning code, if there's a violation of the zoning code, it goes to the zoning board. If the plaintiff doesn't, or property owner doesn't like that decision, then it can be appealed to the board of trustees, and then it becomes final. And I believe at that point, if they still would want to take it to court, it could go to district court. And maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but I think that's correct. But then I wonder, should we follow the same process for these other codes? So there is that appeal process available here in town, instead of going directly to the board of trustees, that have to be appealed to district court as the next step. I guess what I'm looking for in my mind is, let's try to keep things consistent and simple, not only for the town, but simple for our property owners and our residents. Does that?
Thank you. Yes, this is Tom, and I think we're in the right process. We need a process so that people don't feel like they did not have a voice.
Absolutely. 100%. Anybody else on Zoom? I've got one in the audience here in person. Comment?
This is Jesse James, and viewpoint from the zoning board and the things that we address. I love consistency. Therefore, that uniform penalties is my vote. And as we discussed in the zoning board meeting, if we just had a flat fee of $200 or $300 for a violation, that's a pretty cheap way of getting around our zoning code. So I like these each day as being a violation after it has been determined there is a violation. And I think you guys are on the right track to work that out with our attorney. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Justin. So, and I've got another thought rolling around in my head. So the zoning code infractions or violations go to the zoning. These other codes, the building code, the 2018 building code, wildfire resiliency code, and the energy code are more than likely going to get enforced, I guess, so to speak, by the building inspector. I mean, as far as the building inspector is going to be the one that's going to see something probably that's out of kilter on a building inspection. So does that need to go, does the building inspector then take it to the zoning board who hears it, and then it goes to the Board of Trustees? I don't know.
Well, yeah, so this is Tom, and I'm currently still serving in that position, and I think that's a good approach. Yes, I think that's a good approach.
So I'm gonna bring it back up to the board if there's any other public discussion. So maybe I'll rephrase what we kind of talked about and see if there's something different we want to do or move forward with this and goes. But the process for violation would be from the building inspector brings it forward to the zoning board. Zoning board makes a determination on it. If it needs to be appealed, it goes to the Board of Trustees. And the violation being $50 per day. That's what I'm hearing. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, I think just making sure there's some sort of mitigation time frame in there that, you know, hey, there is a violation. They go, oh yeah, sorry. In the case that it was either unintentional or you know, however you say it, but
Okay.
where does that, just making sure that that falls in that process Sunday.
Okay, so I'll go back to the zoning code again. And we're now pulling it up and reading it specifically. I believe it says within 15 days of the violation, the person is notified. They need to respond back in 15 days to the zoning board, and the zoning board has 10 days to respond to it. I guess where I'm going with it is maybe for these other codes, we do the same process that we did in the zoning code, so it's all the same.
I think that makes the most sense.
So Hillary, does that make sense of what we've tried to spell out or what I've tried to spell out?
It does, yes.
Or if we vote on this, will that give you enough information to put into the ordinances for these other 4 ordinances we got?
Yeah, I don't need to vote on it. I think I can take direction from the board on this.
Okay. I didn't know if there was something I was missing. So, any further discussion up here on the board?
Yeah, this is Tom. I have a question regarding when these go into effect.
Okay, so kind of got a timeline. And the timeline on these 4 ordinances is, let me get the notes in front of me. Here it is. We have to have a couple readings on these ordinances. We have to have public notices. So we're looking at February for the first public notice, a reading in the February meeting, and then public hearing, and then we can vote on it. The 2025 Wildfire Resiliency Code, we have to have approved by April 1st.
Okay, that's what I was, like a deadline was open.
So that's the first deadline, and the idea that I have is we adopt all 4 of them at the same time in separate ordinances, and we can do that by March.
Thank you.
And then we can also set, when we adopt those codes, say we adopt them in March, we can set that, say, the 2025 Wildfire Resiliency Code goes into effect. I refuse to put April 1st. So probably March 30th. And then the
That's
energy
funny.
code will be, the energy codes don't have to be approved until June 30th. Or, excuse me, don't have to be in place until June 30th. So that's, I mean, I've had some discussion with our town attorney on it. where we may put in the building code and wildfire resiliency code. So it's in effect April 1st. And then do the energy codes at the end of June. Maybe the end of May, make sure we got a buffer in there. I don't want to get caught where we don't have it in place July 1st. And then we're forced to go into the low carbon 2024 energy. So that's kind of the game plan. Right. Okay. So I guess I would entertain a motion. Someone would like to put that.
Well, you have discussed with possible action. I think that loads it.
Yeah, possible action. You want me to make the motion? I'm getting 3 in there. So this is it. I will move that we direct our town attorney to add into these 4 ordinances for the building code, the wildfire resiliency code, the energy conservation code, and the Colorado energy code. I move that we put the penalties for violation of $50 per day. The process of the violation, the written notice of the violation, the appeals process, that it follows our zoning code of the 15 days and 10 days within the respondent. I believe that's all that needs to be done.
So that was a motion.
That was the motion.
Okay. This is Tom, and I will second Mr. Pianopo's motion.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second to set the penalties for violation for these 4 codes at $50 per day. The process of written notice and appeal process follows our zoning code. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Item number 5. Item number 5 is to discuss with possible actions the recommendations of the zoning code updates from the zoning board of adjustment. So I'm going to scroll through a clean red line. So what I mean by clean is the zoning code is updated to all of the requested changes. And then in red line will be the latest changes that were recommended by the zoning board last Monday. Okay. There's really primarily three. There's one up I'm going to explain to you up front. We've had some discussion, or there was some discussion on the zoning board. Is it called the Board of Zoning Adjustments or the Zoning Board of Adjustments? And that has been ping pong back and forth. Our town attorney told us it could go either way. It's whatever the Board of Trustees wants to say it should be. So for right now, for tonight, because the zoning board said, well, we think we should be called the Zoning Board of Adjustments, the ZBA that we've been called for years. That's a lot of the red lines in this version. Is changing it from Board of Zoning Adjustments to Zoning Board of Adjustments. So I'm going to get that out of the way, then the rest of it's easy. All right, so if I skip over something that's redlined on here on a page, please point it out to me. It's not my intent by any means. And if I go too fast, I'm going to slow down. And I believe the first item is on, say the page number in case anybody on Zoom has the document off and they're looking at it and they can't see the screen. But page 6, under recreational vehicle, the zoning board requested that the link less than 40 feet in length be taken out of the term. I'm just gonna let it sit there. If anybody has, any of the board members have any discussion on
I'd say that's reasonable.
We do have,
I
we do,
personally have an RV that's longer than 40 foot, so.
it, okay?
We
Yeah,
do-
just saying they exist. So
I
define it less than 40 foot, I think does create some challenges.
okay,
we have a hand up online.
okay. So I'll see if there's questions on the board first. If not, then I'm gonna go, looks like Pete again.
Yes.
Yes, this is Pete Olson again. When this was discussed at the zoning board recently, I know there was quite a bit of discussion about that. One of the things that I was concerned about is by defining that and then listing it as a permitted use in the business district zone, I felt that there should be, I don't know if you want to call them design standards or minimum parameters that a recreational vehicle ought to meet. And I did a little bit of research and came across 6 Colorado Code of Regulations 1010-9 that was published by I think the Department of Health and Environment. That's 6 CCR 1010-9. And those are minimum standards for a campground or recreational park or whatever you want to call it. And in looking at that, there were some things in there that I found perhaps a little concerning, and it made me think that perhaps before the board goes too far down the road, you might want to review those regulations, see how they impact the town, because it appears to me it may be a responsibility of the town to enforce those minimum standards, either as written or as perhaps adopted in a town ordinance. And I think you need some guidance from your town attorney on that. But some of the things that popped out to me were that those regulations require there be an access road into the recreational vehicle park, either a minimum of, depending on if it's a two-way street or one-way street, anywhere from 10 to 24 feet wide access road into the park proper. Interestingly, it requires, at least appears to me, a minimum setback of 25 feet from any public right-of-way, whereas the zoning code currently has a 10-foot front yard setback, for example. I think you also need to give some consideration to density. The state standards are minimum of 900 square feet per unit allowed in the RV park. So I think there's quite a bit involved with that. And I believe before you just adopt this and move forward, perhaps it ought to be discussed in a little bit more detail by the board and with your attorney and perhaps with the zoning board again. So that is essentially my comment. And thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Pete, can you repeat those numbers, please, that you gave us?
It's listed as 6 CCR 1010-9. And I came upon that just looking to see if there are any, model RV park guidelines or whatever, and this kind of popped up. So I think your attorney need to look at that, and I'm assuming it's still in effect. And one of my questions would be, given the standards put forth in that document, is it the town's obligation to assure if an RV park is established that it complies with all of those regulations? So that would become potentially a responsibility of the town to. So that's kind of the gist of my question or comment.
So what, Pete, what site is it? It's not Colorado state statute, right? Or is it?
Well, it's a Colorado The Code of Colorado Regulations is the citation.
Okay, thank you.
And I mean, it's, in some respects, it appears a little cumbersome to me, but I think it's a matter of how that applies to the town and what the town's responsibilities would be. So I think you should be aware of that.
Thank you, Pete. So I'm gonna put our town attorney on the spot just a little bit to see if she can respond to that, if we need to have further research on it.
Yeah, I was able to pull up the cited portion of the Colorado Code of Regulations, but I can't determine offhand whether it would apply. I'm just gonna need a little bit of time to go through them. And more importantly, figure out under what statutory authority they're promulgated, because that may be a limitation as to where they apply. So I'm going to need a little bit of time to sort it out, but it's certainly worth pursuing.
Okay. That's very fair. So I think we go ahead and discuss what we've got in the zoning code and allow town attorneys some time to research that. But it's, I don't know, see if it applies, if it doesn't apply, see whatever she can do. I think that's a fair. So, go back to the zoning code then. 40, less than 40 feet being struck, we're okay with that? And I'll move down to under the recreational vehicle park. Provided we don't have to change something because of this of Colorado regulations. But currently, it was struck by the zoning board, requested that we take out the with or without facilities such as water and electricity for periods not to exceed 14 consecutive days, and added provides facilities for the recreational vehicles, including at a minimum water, sewage, disposal, and electricity. So I know the zoning board requested basically to say that if there was an RV park, it had to have hookups that included electrical, and water, and sewer, which in itself is going to limit the density in an RV park, because then it's limited by, in our town, in Pitkin, it's limited by the size of the OWTS system. Would have an impact on it. So that's, just throw that out there. Tom, you have something?
Yeah, so I had some time to think about this, and the thing that popped in my mind is, well, the fact of the matter is we do have people who'd like to be here if we want. And providing electricity is not a weather issue. The other two things can be. So I don't know if we want to, in our preliminary looks in here, if we want to somehow modify them, because obviously that would be nice, but I don't know if it's year round feasible. I'm just going to say from experience, I know there are RVs out there that can be winter RVs. Yes, but the water and sewer to them supplies can be sketchy. I mean, anything is sketchy to this building.
That part of it.
Yeah, okay, that's just a thought.
Okay. Jared.
I'm looking at the 14 consecutive days. And I understand in the National Forest or up here, the Pitkin campground, various campgrounds, I think you have to leave, you have to be gone 14 days. And I understand that because that's taxpayer supported. So you don't want, I mean, you have to open it up so more taxpayers could enjoy that property tax. But do we have the right to tell a private business how many days they can let a RV stay? I don't know. Is that different than And I'm just throwing this out here, but is that different than telling like the lodge or the hotel, you can only let visitors stay 14 consecutive days? Do we really have that right to tell
Well,
private property or private business owner?
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, so this is Tom. So I do know that in the past, for those, as you brought up, the issue of private property, for those that were camped out on their own property, had a guest on their own property or whatever. We had a different set of limits. It was so many days per quarter or so many days per consecutive quarters. So you can kind of jam those together and come up with, what was it, 39, 40 days, 45 days?
I believe it's 30 days consecutive and then 40 in a 90-day period.
Yeah, so I know that we have had a difference between what the Park Service does up here, and what we did in town on about the property. I just thought that.
Improved.
Yeah. So they had someplace to run into the bathroom. Basically, all that was required there.
So, I mean, yeah, one of my concerns with the 14 consecutive days, and I've got concerns going both ways. One of my concerns is if we don't have a time limitation on it, is that we have someone that, better term, camps out long term for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. I don't see that. I mean, the flip side is what Jared brings up. I'm not sure as a board can or should we dictate to a business how they're going to run their business. And that is the hours are going to be open or the number of days that they could have someone stay in an RV. I don't know the legal side of it, if we can legally do that, or if we can't. I do agree with Jared in everybody uses 14 days for camping. And that's always been for the Forest Service. They use 14 days because the Forest Service belongs to all of us. And it gives everyone then an opportunity to camp for 14 days, get your stuff, get out, let someone else come in. And I don't know, I'm gonna go back to our town attorney. Do we have the right to tell a business that you can or can't, or you can limit, or you have to limit the number of days that you can rent your spots out to an individual, or that's something we shouldn't be doing? I don't know.
You do have that right. It's part of defining the use. And the idea being that if for longer term stays, there might be a greater requirement for services. So the types of services that you would expect for a 14-day stay might be different than a 30 or 60 or 90-day stay. And at some point it becomes an RV park, like a trailer park, where these are homes, they're permanent and they're not really transitory. They're not really functioning like a temporary structure. So it's meant to make the distinction between those two types of uses.
Okay.
I trying to figure out where to start. I got a few things to add, but
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, I really didn't think about the 14-day thing. I can say personally, we do our fair share of RV in the off season, and there has been times I've stayed longer than 14 days at a camper, a private camper. And so I can see the need or the demand for that. And I think you kind of hamstring a business owner by saying, well, you can only rent a spot 14 days. The other elephant in the room is 14 days, as we know, is extremely difficult to enforce. Because who's going onto that property and looking at every RV that's there and going, oh, you checked in on this day. So just realistically, the town has a hard time enforcing that 14-day, even if that's the decision or the direction we go with. Essentially, you're saying the town gets to review every day what RVs are in there. I mean, I think you create an enforcement mechanism there. You need an enforcement mechanism, but how do you do it?
We would have to have a camp host in the town of Pitkin. Because today, and you bring, that's a good point.
And the Forest Service, honestly, we get to talk with Forest Service volunteers. It's a challenge for them. And they have volunteers that's basically their job every day is to go out in the forest and go drive them. And it's a challenge for them. So I can see this being extremely challenging for the town.
I can say it's been a challenge for the town to enforce our current 2 ordinances on camping. But when do those days start? When do they stop? We don't have a mechanism to go and see when does someone come into a campsite. We can't do it on those 2 ordinances. I'm not sure how we would do it on this one either.
You know, I think most people just kind of guesstimate. You know, most people are going to probably be limited by vacation time off, and everything. You get a few people that are able to come up here a month or 2 at a time, but I think to some extent this is self-regulating. But I don't want, like you said, I don't want to see somebody. Oh, we're going to just move in the RV park and just live in the RV for the next 2 years. You know, I don't think anybody wants that. I think that's absurd. Because evidently this is quite a contentious subject that I didn't really see coming, but I would think that'd be the general consensus is we don't want to see that where it's like, okay, it's not really an RV park, it's more of a mobile. And I mean, I've been in RV parks that have people that are living there. They've been there for 3 or 4 or 5 years. I don't know if that's necessarily what we want or what's right for the town. So kind of where I'm at on that.
So let the 14 days just set for a second. And ask the question, are we okay with the second part of that says provides facilities for RVs, including a minimum water, sewage disposal interest? Is the board okay with that part? Or did we like it better than one overrule zoning board saying it needs to say with or without its facilities? My thoughts, I'll give you my thoughts. I'll start off. I think if we say an RV park has to have the facilities, I think we limit the density. Because
It's
self-regulating by the OWTSs.
And just anybody that's online, this is just a commercial business district allowed.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that was maybe some of the concern previously is maybe people miss that part that it's a commercial or a business district allowed. You know, business. This isn't something that's going to pop up in a residential area. But I think if you require it, like you said, it's kind of self-limiting. My concern is if you don't have it, if nothing else, if you don't provide a sewer or sewage disposal, how do you guarantee that these people aren't in the middle of the night doing the gray water drip or black water drip essentially and letting it drip on the ground at night or something? I would hope people aren't doing that, but I can tell you, I would much rather have sewer disposal than any of the other 3 items on there when we're in an RV park.
I'm not real knowledgeable on RVs, campers, any of that. But I would certainly be in favor of having like water and sewer. And now I do know, they have their own, some of those have their own disposed. I've seen them at lakes running around with their blue tanks behind them to dump. So I know some of them are very self-contained. And they could still be self-contained and not use the water or septic. But right now, my opinion is that should be provided for each are they all called RVs? Campers?
Or
Some of them are motorhomes, some of them.
yeah, for the concern, or how the zoning board concerned, or zoning code concerns that they're all on.
Yeah, but that's kind of my opinion.
Tom, what do you think on that part?
Yeah, so this is Tom, and this is a really mixed bag. As Pete brought up there's some more things that we need to look into. And I believe that is correct. But as far as this single issue of septic versus one of the, I'm kind of torn on that because as Corey pointed out here, sometimes you pull into a spot, nobody gives you any grief, you sit there for 3 weeks. But my motorhome could do that, easy sneeze. So I set up my solar panels, enjoy my time there. And I didn't need, I was self-contained. That was years ago. So if we had this 14-day thing, then anybody in almost anything can survive self-contained for 14 days. So whatever you do with that number might affect what you require on the other number. Just a thought, I don't know.
Okay. Okay, we got one in the audience that wants to address just that section, so I'll let Jessica.
Yeah, Jesse. Yeah, Jesse, yeah. Jesse James, seems like I always have a comment, but I'm deeply involved in this with the zoning board and our discussions. And as Ed Pinalto announced, the density will help control the number of RVs that are in a designated area. So I like that. And I would say probably 95% or more are self-contained with gray and black water tanks. And that's going to automatically control the days that they're going to be in one location without going to a dump facility. I don't like the 14 days because I don't think that we should control how many hours and what hours the Stumbling Moose Lodge is open, or the hotel is open, or the Silver Plume, or even if you have a laundromat come to town. I don't think you should control it. Can only run from noon to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's up to the owner, the owner of the business. And he will take care of his investment to try to make greatest return, which will get the most sales taxes coming into the town of Pitkin. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. I'm kind of in a little bit of a pickle which way we go, because I know we're gonna have our town attorney look at this code of regulations and see how any of that impacts this. If it doesn't impact it, then I'd like to see us be able to move forward with what we've got. I'm hearing 3 that are okay with providing the facilities, and Tom can go either way based on what happens with the 14 days. Is that correct? So do we try to determine the 14 days first, or determine the second one? Type of facility.
I'd like to hear what the CCR.
You'd like to hear that first?
Code of conduct.
Okay, so then I'll recommend this, is that I know our town attorney will check this out. I hate to put this off till January, after our next meeting, to look at this section and determine which way we go. My hopes, based on our time frame, maybe it's not possible. Our hope was to do the zoning code in January, start publishing it in January. But if there's questions on this code of Colorado regulations that I do think we need to have Hillary look at, I think we need to know that before we move forward. So I guess I'm gonna recommend, and tell me if you disagree, is that this section of it, we put a temporary hold on this. Let our town attorney get back on the code of Colorado regulations. And then we move forward on in January, once we know what the code of regulations. Does that sound reasonable? That sounds reasonable.
Can I throw one wrinkle in there?
Sure.
Depending on what she finds on this code of Colorado regulations.
Right.
How the applicability. I don't want to blindside anybody. I don't think it would hurt to maybe have some basic requirements from the town beyond just providing water, sewage, and electricity. And the thing I can think about, and I'm just, because I've been doing this RV thing for the last 4 or 5 years or whatever now. I think as a property owner, if I was next to one, I would want to see some sort of setback rules. And that just being that I don't necessarily want somebody to pull in right next to my property. They put their slide out next to the property line of my house or my property. And so I think there should be some sort of basic requirements beyond just defining an RV park and saying that's it. Like we mentioned, I think if you require water, sewage, and electricity, that's going to control the density by default. This is in a business district. There's not a lot of places that you can put. I don't know of many places that have much open space that you can probably put more than 5 or 6. If even that. But I'm just thinking, I hate to play devil's advocate on this. I'm just thinking if it were me living next to one, I would hope that somebody could pull up right next to the property line, put their slide out right to the property line and stay there for a month, park like that. So just something to consider, just my opinion. I think a few basics like that probably go a long ways towards alleviating some of the I want to say angst or concern over RV parks.
So
Just my opinion.
okay, let me ask you this, and Hillary's gonna hear me say this. So do we want Hillary to, once she looks at this, she determines the applicability of these code of regulations? Yes, it fits, or no, it doesn't. If it doesn't, and then none of this pertains, which the code of Colorado regulations 1010-9 do not pertain to what we're doing, do we want her to write some, I'm not sure how to say it, some example or some possibilities of regulations that we can look at, or do we want to come up with those to present to her? And I guess I'll ask her if she even wants to give any possibilities to the board first.
I could certainly give you samples of what other regulations are. There are all sorts of them, regulating how many, what the setbacks are, things like that. So depends on what the board wants.
I just think some basics. I'm not saying, we need to have a full 2 or 3 page defining, but
No, I don't want to.
I'm just trying to think over the last 4 or 5 years, any RV parks that we've ever stayed in that could be considered to be in a residential nature district. And that's always been the challenge here, is that we say, yes, it's a business district, but there's really 3 businesses in town. The rest, even on Main Street, everything else is pretty much a residence. And so I don't know how to alleviate some of those concerns, people that might end up next to one. And I've just maybe some sort of basic guidelines, and not to the effect of saying you have to have an X amount of footprint, and your driveway has to be this big, nothing like that. Some sort of basic.
Okay, so I think it would be,
and maybe all this is for naught because this Colorado Code of Regulations may apply.
right. Yeah. So I think the direction we give Hillary is She looked at the Code of Colorado regulations and and determines does it apply or does it not. If it applies, then we're probably hands are tied on a lot of it. If it doesn't apply, then she can give us some examples for our January meeting. We can look at prior to the meeting.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. Is that clear enough, Hillary?
Yes, sir.
Would you like us to vote on that, or are you okay with?
Nope, I'm good with that.
Okay. That's the direction we'll leave that one for tonight. All right, so we're gonna get off of page 6. Then page 7, for those that are following, that's where it starts the zoning board of adjustments. And you're gonna see a lot of those at the bottom.
Okay, this is Tom, back up. So this was added and it did not get red line. Plan development, right down to your 3 zones. Right down to your 3 zones. So my question to this board is, has anybody looked this up? Do you know what this is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So then my next question becomes, for a town that is absolutely constrained on our property lines, there will be no annexation volume. So to come up with a space to implement this plan development, part of which, and you'll read there in the rhetoric of it, that some of it's quite nice, a little bit flowery maybe, but 20 to 30% of this plan development will be devoted to public use. That's part of what plan development does. That's how you get this welfare and good vibes to the community and all that. And so for me, looking at this, here's the bottom line I come up with, and I said this the other night. We don't have we don't have the privilege at this point of having municipal water or sewer. And having those 2 items dramatically changes what a development looks like, because the space required changes drastically. So just on that, and having looked at it, I actually don't see anywhere in this town that this could be done or be have any financial incentive to a developer to do this. And as far as I know, there's only one spot in the world here that might be done. There are other constraints up there. So I really, it's my opinion, I don't see this as being a viable option in any way, shape, or form for the town of Pitkin. And I see it as a confusing issue since it is not. But that's my opinion, so I'll leave it there.
So for any future building sites, no matter whether upstream, down, there aren't very many because next forest, and we all know the constraints we have here. I assumed that that this part where it says plan development was just a town's opportunity to have input or regulate when someone wants to develop an area.
Yes,
And
and
so
the key note there is area. The plan development is an area that is developed or redeveloped to meet certain guidelines of what a plan development is. And the reason for a plan development, there's 2 or 3. I have not found any financial incentives per se, other than to have a very attractive piece of property, so that that creates both public use, because you've got a certain amount of land dedicated to public use, and it can be built several different places, and then also the ability, which you will find in large cities where they have annexed and the developer wants to develop, but you're 30 miles from the nearest Piggly Wiggly or whatever we've got. And so you can put light business also into a planned development. So all of that pulls together and winds up looking quite nice and a little bit parky, because you've got a fifth to almost a third of it developed for public use, which is parking and public meeting spaces and walkways and so forth.
I guess I didn't look into it that much. I, here again, assumed. Is it the title? I mean, do we have, are there constraints? If we call it planned development, I'm not thinking about what the state thinks of planned development or anybody else thinks. I'm just thinking this was a way for us to have some input on that area. We have very few in town.
I guess, can we just address the element? Because this was put in here because there was a board for Jake's development that he wants to do.
There was what?
There was the board that discussed all the issues with Jake's development. Out of that board, they determined that the best, course of action was a planned unit development. There's people that are on the Zoom call that are in that.
As a planned unit or urban, it's not a planned.
That's what I'm saying. PD, PUD, it's the same.
Yeah.
Say that again, Hillary. So
It's variously referred to as a planned development or a planned unit development, but they're basically the same thing. And the town is defining what the planned development means for the town. There's no specific requirement for a percentage of public use or anything like that. I'm not sure where that is coming from, other than maybe that's how it's done elsewhere.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just not trying to be point blank, but this was put in because everyone said, hey, this is the best course of action. If to look at this as a planned unit development or whatever. And then everybody said, well, hey, this can't happen because the zoning code doesn't make a provision for that. So that's my understanding why this is in here. And I guess I just don't see the heartburn about this because the town still has quite a bit of control and a lot of input on how these happen. It's not just a free for all, in my opinion, at least the way I read this. And I'm a little puzzled on the 20% thing. I don't see that anywhere in this code. And to my knowledge, a planned development doesn't define specific rigid 20% for public use this much, to my knowledge.
Okay.
I could be wrong. But I guess I just
this and read that with him. So, this is Tom. So I'm not dead set against the planned urban development property. This is not what that's about. I see this as confusion and crossing up issues.
So I know when we discussed this, even in the zoning board, and then with Hillary, and again, I know she'll correct me if I say something wrong here, but a planned unit development or a planned development that we've got in the zoning code allows, doesn't matter what in the property or in the town property owners on, if someone acquires multiple building sites, whether it's upstream, downstream, in the middle, something gets annexed, whatever. If someone acquires multiple building sites, the planned development could be different on 12th Street than what we as a town might need or want on First Street. And this allows us to plan accordingly, dependent upon the development. And I have all the trust in the world with our town attorney, the way she wrote this in here, based on the feedback we've given her of what we wanted in the plan developments. I think that's what that allows us to do in the town.
that's the way I understand it.
Okay.
I think, and I'll say that's the reason I understand the verbiage is so flexible. And I don't know, Tom, if that's, I don't want to say heartburn, but that's what your issue with it is, that the definition's more flexible, or, as opposed to just a rigid X, Y, and Z.
No, so, yeah, my position is that, it's like I said, we are constrained in many ways. We don't have municipal services. And that will impinge on development issues. And I see this as just not happening in the execution. It's not to say that you can't come up with 8 or 9 lots if you can manage that, and then even development wise, you still gotta have water your own.
Right.
And OWTS.
Right.
These take up X amount of space. So, you're not gonna have cluster housing.
No, and I think that is the intent of the planned development is that if we have a piece of property that has 5, 6, 7 building sites on it, that can be planned out of where the water is gonna be, where the sewer is gonna be, so that someone doesn't buy a lot and all of a sudden they get hosed because the neighbor bought a lot previously and put the well right next to it, and it's not planned out. That's what we're looking for.
So, all right, so the plan development for individual property.
It's a planned development for that area, for those.
Well, that would be under developers.
It's a planned development for a developer.
For development, which would mean, well, he will then be developing and selling lots or selling lots that they develop or whatever. So yes, you do have some good points there. But my point is you get this in. Because it's all gonna pass on.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I do agree with that. We already have regulations in place. Maybe plenty of regulations in place. For that very thing, because of all of the well permits, the septic permits. So maybe that's redundant, but I don't really have a plan with it being,
So-
or a problem with it being in there.
So if this is Tom, if you guys want to leave this in there, I don't see it as being anything other than a little bit confusing for people. Because you're gonna have to deal with it anyway.
Sure. I do.
I think I would see that too. I was a little confused when I read it myself.
Okay, so we're okay.
Yeah, if you want to leave it.
We're gonna move on.
So the rest of it won't be near as tough. That's all I've got on this.
Okay, I'm scrolling. Tell me if I missed something. Nope, there's that zoning board of adjustment again. Zoning board of adjustment. Okay, number of signs. This was a little bit of back and forth on number of signs, particularly in residential areas. Originally, the code was written that there was no more than 2 signs of 50 square feet each shall be permitted per property in the residential district. The zoning board, after looking at that, and bells went off thinking, okay, that's a 4x8 sheet of plywood. To put it in perspective. 2 4x8 sheets of plywood that someone could have as a sign in their residence, in the residential area. And the zoning board concurred that, well, that seemed like a stretch because if everybody got carried away, you could have a whole lot of big signs in residential area. So the zoning board requested, making a recommendation that that be reduced down to 1 sign of a maximum of 50 square feet per residential area. Or resident.
Those permanent? Does that mean permanent signs? Because that's different than the temporary signs in the code, banners.
Yes, that's for a permitted sign. That could be permanent, not temporary.
We have an online comment. Go ahead, Pete.
Go ahead, Pete.
Thank you. Sorry to keep making comments. My comment isn't specifically about the number of signs in residential, but it's about the issue of non-conforming signs. And the reason I'm making that comment is there has been discussion in the past of some of the signs that exist in the community do not conform with the current sign regulations. And this statement in item D says that all legal signs in existence at the time of adoption. So I think that there's a bit of a problem as you go forward if you're going to have some reasonable sign regulations. How do you deal with some of the existing signs that may not comply with your existing regulations. Because once you adopt this, the owners of those signs may argue it, well, they were existing at the time of adoption of the new code, so it's grandfathered in. So I just think that's an issue that you should be aware of. And I think that also may apply some other areas of town that just have non-conforming uses that aren't signs. So I think you need to understand how that process works and see if you're comfortable with moving forward on new regulations when you have some signs that don't comply with the existing. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
So this is Tom. I think Pete's point is valid, and it did to some degree cross my mind earlier back when zoning was discussing this. So I had imagined that if they were non-conforming at the time of the adoption of this code, they would, since they were non-conforming prior to, they would not suddenly get a okey-dokey. How do we deal with it?
Since I'm not an attorney. I would, my perception would be is it would have to be a legal sign under the current zoning code. And if it's a non-conforming sign at this point, then it would be non-conforming under the new code and it wouldn't be legal. Is that a correct statement, Hillary?
Yeah, so correct. So if it's a legal non-conforming sign, meaning it's permitted to be out of compliance, then it can remain. But if it's out of compliance with no permission to be that way, it can be enforced against.
Okay, at first, did you say a legal non-conforming sign?
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
what you said?
That is what I said.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm confused, Hillary.
You stumped us.
Conforming sign.
So a legal nonconformity means it's permitted to be out of compliance typically because it's an existing sign or structure or use. But if it's just out of compliance and then you adopt new regulations and it's still out of compliance, it doesn't give them any special right to continue that.
I think that makes sense.
Oh, we have
Another,
Pete with a hand up again.
all right,
Yeah.
Pete's got his hand.
Just a couple examples. I think what your attorneys were referring to, a legal non-conforming sign perhaps might be the Roadkill Cafe sign. Has been there for forever. And probably at the time it was put up, there were no sign regulations or very minimal regulations. So it's been there for forever. Every time you updated a code, it more or less got grandfathered in. Now, as far as signs that don't exist with permission, in other words, don't comply with the existing codes today, there are some off-site and billboard signs in the community that don't meet the regulations stated in the current sign regulations in the zoning code. And I think they should be dealt with, in my opinion, but that's for you to decide. So that was kind of the purpose of my comments, to at least be aware that as you move forward, you may establish a grandfather right argument by the owners and operators of some of these signs, whereas they really may not have that right. So.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Anybody else on there? Okay. So back to the red line. Is the board okay with the one sign per residential property?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm okay.
That was a good catch, over copy.
Okay, so we're gonna leave that one the way it is.
Well-
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, so my question was, because up there at the top it says all legal signs that we document this code. All legal signs in existence on the effective date of this code. Okay, that spells it out.
Page 13, it's the town of Pitkin, the zoning board of adjustments. Those changes again, this page is full of them. It's all the same change there. Appeals, violations, no changes there. Enforcement. Under the enforcement, this is where we talk this, there's no changes here. I'm just stating this was what we brought up for the other codes that we want to roll into. Ability to write new. No changes there for this, and that way it followed the same format on all ordinances. Under penalties, was clarified with each day's failure to correct a violation after the deadline specified. So do we want to leave this as $300, or do we just corrected Hillary in the new ordinances and put it at $50 per day? This one says 300 a day. Do we want this to read $50 a day? Or the 300?
Well, on an unresolved issue, it doesn't take long to get to $300 at $50 a day.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, for just. How do we want to say congruency here? I mean, you know, that everything's equal. I'm not opposed to $50. I think it's a good idea because it's still $1,500 a month.
That's right.
Or 18,000 a year. You know, I mean, it's enough. I think the goal is to not be overbearing, but have enough of a financial deterrent that people go, okay, I will actually fix it. And if you said, oh, it's $1 a day, some people might go, well, I'll let it ride for a couple of years. But I think $50 is still it becomes financially painful enough at some point that people ignore it. And I think it keeps everything across the board even.
Okay, so is the board in agreement on $50 per day for the zoning code violations as well?
I'm okay with that. As long as it's not like, you know, that $300 deal for years, that there were people that I could understand why they thought that. It's just easier to pay a $300 fine and get what you done and leave it. So I'd go with it as long as it's accumulating.
Okay, $50 per day. I'm okay with that. You say you're okay, Tom, you're okay?
So this, just curiosity, is there any qualifier in there about 5 days a week or 7 days a week? Just wonder.
There's not, no.
Calendar day. Okay. Well, okay. I was just curious.
I'll be not a bad clarification.
Hillary might need to make.
Yeah.
So I guess my argument would be the violation doesn't quit on the weekends.
That's right.
It does.
Violation doesn't go away.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can clarify. I don't know if it really needs a clarification.
I will leave that up to our town attorney if she believes that needs to be added in there. But I would like for her to change the $300 then. $50 a day, sorry. Get tired.
Oh,
I
no.
think the rest of the change that was in red, I think would stay.
It does say each day.
Yes, that does say each day. It did not before, and that's why I was under the impression it was a $300 one-time fine. I think in the past, I think previous boards thought it was that way too.
Well, Corey is correct in his estimation of ongoing fine building up over time.
Well, and then
$50 may have more,
I remember too,
less egregious.
yeah, but remember also by the state statute on these, some of these ordinances, it's a maximum that we can fine is $2,650 for maximum fine. That is total, correct, Hillary?
That is through the municipal court that you don't have. So if the fine is not being imposed by the court, then that restriction does not apply.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm glad that we clarified that. All right, so I'm gonna move on down to page 18. It's only zoning board of adjustment changes again, the board of zoning adjustments. And I believe that takes us to the end. So our only outlying issue is the RV park section where Hillary's gonna look up Colorado regulations, figure out if it applies, if it doesn't apply. And then if it doesn't apply, give us some ideas on some additional items that we might put in there for the RV park, as well as the, was forgotten, other item is the RV park, besides the 14 days. Oh, no, we agreed on the having facilities. Okay. So do we want to take a vote on the zoning code the way it sits with the exception of the RV park? Or do we let Hillary make the adjustments that we said tonight? And we look at it again in January, including the RV park section.
Personally, well, I mean, what exactly we be voting on?
We either vote on the recommendations we accepted, with the exception of RV park, or we table this item so we can review the RV park and approve it. I think we need to have just a vote one way.
You'd be in favor of tabling until January. I think that makes no sense. Okay, I'll make a motion that we review this item in the January schedule.
All right, Corey's making a motion.
Question
Oh, go Tom.
on the motion, I'm question on the motion.
Okay,
So, you're tabling just this section regarding the RV park. Is that what the motion is?
If we table that section, what else are we voting?
I
the only thing we could vote on is all the other recommended changes from the zoning board in the zoning code that we adopt as we went through tonight. We're not adopt, but we're okay with it. We can't adopt it to this hearings and ordinances. Or we just table it and we look at the RV park section. And we kind of went through a roll call vote on each of the items tonight. I think we'd be okay doing it.
I'm gonna retract my motion.
Okay.
It didn't get second.
Yeah, it did get second to it. Die.
Go for it, Tom.
Do you want to make another motion or?
No, I want to, so, Corey, speed talk sometime, and I didn't catch what he said at the last one.
I'll let you make a motion, Tom.
So, okay, so for more discussion, so the motion is to table the whole thing because it doesn't all fly together until we get this. Or we just table this part because we've had a verbal agreement on that. So the question is, so is that motion is to table this part or table the whole thing?
Can I jump in here, guys?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So there's nothing to, the ordinance can only be approved as a whole once it's ready for approval. There's really no need to do this intermediate approval. So I think the motion should be to just reset this for the January agenda. And you'll consider the zoning code then.
Okay, I'll make a motion to table further discussion of zoning code until January regular scheduled meeting.
All right, so we
I'll
got
second it. This is Gerald.
motion. Second to table it till our January meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Right. So the last item on the agenda was to set a public hearing date for the ordinance for the adoption of the zoning code. But because we need to review this in January, I don't know that we can set a public hearing for the January meeting.
Okay, so this is Tom with a question. So how far from the time that we set a public hearing to where, how much lead time do we have to advertise that before?
15 days. 15 days.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So, by way of setting a date, if you think this is all gonna fly and you wanted to shorten that up a bit, could you set a date that was a week after
We
we
could,
get this information?
if we want to do another special meeting.
Oh, never mind.
Maybe in January, this is floated along, this zoning code revamp for so long, maybe there's no reason unless you want to quit kicking it down the can and set a special meeting in January. Ahead of the, I don't care either.
My gut feeling tells me. Well, okay, let me just forget about my gut and ask this question to Hillary. Do we have to adopt the zoning code before we adopt the wildfire resiliency code? I don't believe we do we?
No, you don't. You don't. And the public hearing could occur in January, even if you're not ready to adopt the ordinance in January. So if you're concerned about setting the public hearing for January and then having additional changes, that's okay. The ordinance could still be passed later, but you would have fulfilled the public hearing requirement.
So we could do. Let's say in January, we have this item back up on the agenda, we discuss it. We could do a public hearing right after that.
Yes, as long as it's been noticed as a public hearing, yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So do we want to go ahead and plan on that?
On which?
Well, so then one more question goes with that. This is Tom. So, plan the public hearing after that assumes that we will have these issues resolved at that time.
Right.
If in the event that we do not, we've got a public hearing setting.
So Hillary, if I understood you correctly, if we go ahead and let's say we discuss the extra things we need to discuss on in January, and after that, let's say we don't even have that defined yet, can we still do the public hearing in January and not have to do another one?
Yes,
You're shaking your head yes?
Yes.
yes, I said yes. Yes.
So then I recommend we set a public hearing date for January meeting.
It's the third Monday.
19.
No, it's one, okay, January 19th, so this is gonna be a question for the board. And the 19th is Martin Luther King Day. Do we want to hold a meeting on the 19th? Or as the mayor, I have the prerogative to move it to the 20th. And I'll ask the board, are you okay with holding it on the 19th? Do you want to move it to the 20th? I'm just going.
I'm fine either way. I'm gonna be here.
Okay, I will be here. Okay,
I could be here the 20th. But
okay.
I could zoom in.
Oh, you can zoom in on the 19th. Okay. My only issue is the 21st, I've got to leave town. And it's not as much.
So
I still could do it the
available on
20.
the 20th?
I could do it on the 20th.
Well, my opinion is I would just assume we had 4 people in person sitting up here. If this is going to be followed by public hearing.
So Hillary, are you available on January 20th?
I am not. I have a commitment with another client that night. Town of Winter Park meets on Tuesdays.
So we would really like to have Hillary available for a meeting.
The 20th is real tough for me.
Oh,
too.
I'm sorry, Stacy, I didn't ask you.
It's okay.
Speak up.
It's okay. Well, yeah, I can make it if that's what works best, but it will be a tough one for me.
Is there any other time that week that you have able to get? Oh, you're gone. Gotcha. So, are we looking at the next week then, potentially?
Well, by our ordinance, we have to hold it on the 19th or 20th. Regular meeting. But could you do the Zoom on the 19th? Okay,
And I possibly could be here, but I really don't think it's gonna be possible.
okay, then I'd recommend we go ahead and hold the meeting on the 19th. Even though Jared might have to zoom in. Hillary could zoom in. You're okay with the 19th, Hillary? Okay. All right, let's still plan on the 19th. So, this is it. I'll make a motion that we set a public hearing date for the ordinance adoption of the zoning code on January 19th.
I'll second the motion.
That means that for Stacy, this will have to be put in the paper by the 4th of January.
Okay.
Or whenever, then. We'll know later, but when did they publish, Stacy? Thursday?
Yes.
So in by Tuesday, so that Thursday the 1st is our deadline?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're not gonna meet your 15-day, if I understand that correctly.
So,
It's, I should say for.
True.
Hillary, is that correct? We've got to have it, it's got to be published the 4th of January.
It
To
has
meet the
to be
night.
published 15 days before the hearing itself. So yeah, that would be correct.
I was looking wrong on my calendar, so.
Yeah, they may not publish on the 1st.
And because our newspaper only publishes on Thursday, there's that.
So it can be more than 15 days, but it can't be less.
Okay, so we could
Okay.
publish it, we could get it to Gunnison Country Times even on the 22nd of December.
Yep.
And if they get it published on the 25th, we're good. Okay, so jot that date down, Stacy, the 22nd. Hillary, I can't remember now if you said that you would. Oh, you would work with Stacy on notice something.
The form of notice, yeah, I'm happy to help with that. Stacy, do you want me to prepare a draft or do you have one that you want me to look at?
I do not have one. I would love for you to do that.
Okay, I'll send you something.
Thank you.
So. Hold on. No, okay. So I made the motion for the public hearing date of January 19th. Corey seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Let's see, under reports. I do not have any additional report. The month of December from the mayor. Stacy, I don't think you got anything.
I do not.
I do know we got a report from our street commissioner and from our zoning board chairman. And I believe that's all the only reports from us.
Yes.
So with that. 8:55, I'd have to entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Jared, I so moved.
I'll second the motion.
Oh, Jerry, you're gonna make the motion.
Yeah. It's just
She already so moved.
Oh, second. Second. All in favor, say aye, adjourn. Aye. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for all the feedback. Everybody have a very happy holidays coming up.
Happy holidays.